Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Improv Network podcast. This is a series of conversations geared toward building stronger connections throughout the improv community. I'm James Quesada. I'm your Director of Education Content for the Improv Network. You can go to the improvnetwork.org to check out all the resources available to you there. There are interviews and blogs, and you can make yourself a profile as an improviser, as a teacher, as a coach. You can make yourself a team profile for all the different teams you have, as well as a theater profile or a festival profile, or all sorts of stuff there. There's also a dedicated improv FAQ tab that you can click on to find an archive of these conversations, as well as mini lectures on improv topics as well by yours truly. And as you see at the bottom of the screen right here, this is a pre-recorded episode. So as opposed to our usual live video streamed episodes, this one has been pre-recorded. And so Happy New Year, because this will either be just before or just after the new year. Have not decided quite yet, but either way, we're moving from 2021 into 2022, and I hope it's treating you well. Hope you're being safe. Hope that you're practicing all of the smart things, being vaccinated, getting your booster, masking up. I just got done having, at the time of this recording, COVID, and I'm double vaxxed and had COVID last year early, but I got it again. So it knocked me on my ass for a good 4 days, and not happy about that. So really take it seriously and keep yourself safe. Mask up at the very least if you're going out. I hope you're vaccinated. I hope that you've gotten a chance to get your booster shot. And if you are going out for any reason or mixing and mingling with other people, mask up. It really, on top of everything else, is the last fail-safe to, not even fail-safe, but the last line of defense for you to avoid getting it or getting it again or spreading it. So please be safe and mindful in this new 2022, and maybe we'll see an end to it. Either way, we are going to crack into this episode. Very excited to have a guest that, if you watched our last episode of the year in 2021 with me and Bob, our end of year wrap up, we realized that we had a time zone confusion with our guest for that episode, and we're not able to record live, but we are very happy to be able to do this pre-recorded offline episode as a makeup session with our guest. Very much looking forward to our guest, who is an actor, comedian, director, and theater opener. Having opened the Chicago Comedy Showcase, the Second City ETC, Second City LA, Upfront Comedy, and the Comedy Underground. And she currently manages the fanaticSalon in Culver City. She also has a slew of TV appearances, including Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Shameless, AP Bio, and Veep. Without further ado, I'll welcome my guest, Jane Morris.
Hi.
Hi, Jane. Thanks so much for joining.
I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So our topic for this episode, you alluded to as your list of unpopular ideas.
I have unpopular ideas, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to find out just what that means. We talked a little bit before recording. Generally, it's some ideas that when you tend to talk about them or throw them around, they're, well, less than popular or maybe challenging to people. So
people seem a little shocked sometimes.
Shocked.
A little.
Okay, so I don't know. Where's a good starting point? Can you set us up with maybe a?
I think the one that, like, there's a few, but the one that springs to mind most is the worship of yes and I just feel like I know yes and is like the thing, the motto, and it's like I just feel it's overrated, and it's been a little like twisted up, and I don't know. So it just, like, when I go somewhere and I see people wearing like a yes and shirt, I'm like, oh yeah. So here's my experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, as a teacher of improv, let's go back. Viola is why we do improv, right? She invented improv, the kind of improv we do in America. American improv comes from Viola Spolin. Boom, right?
Yes.
She never said yes and. That's not in her work. You will not find it because it is not there. The person who coined that phrase was Joe Forsberg in Chicago. Now, Joe taught everybody that you know up to a point, like George Wendt, and you name it. Anybody who was at Second City, pretty much, not me, but a lot of people started with Joe because there wasn't a training center of any kind. There was no improv. There were maybe some improvisers teaching a class somewhere, not many. The place you went in Chicago to learn improvisation was Joe Forsberg. And she taught viola, very strictly viola, but she came up with this phrase, yes and. And now, first of all, Joe has been like erased from improv history, which is really sad to me. And she's not wrong, about yes and. Just so there's that.
Sure.
However, there's the overrated. When I first started teaching improv, the first thing, if somebody's walking off the street and they've never improvised before and they don't know what improv is or anything, you get them on stage, the first thing they will say is no. And that is virtually everyone. I'm everybody. And so as a teacher, I did, as a discipline, make them say the words yes and. I do. I can. I will. I don't anymore because I found there's a way around all that. You don't have to worry about any of it. But because it's the first thing people do. And I don't know what it is about our human psychology that is it protective, or do we think we have to create conflict, or, what that is about going on stage and having somebody go, get in the car. No, they will say no. They will say no. Mm-hmm. You have to let them understand the possibility of yes. You know what I mean? And all that yes brings. You have to do that much.
Yeah.
And then I take that block away and say, just don't say it anymore. Think it. Don't even talk until you think the words yes and in your head, right? And then off we go to the races. So, okay, good. Now you understand the possibility of yes. Mm-hmm. The problem is when it becomes, the god of improv things that you should be doing, is that you don't, it becomes absurdist, right? Because and then people will manipulate it because they know you have to say yes. So they're going to do something for shock value or comedy value, God knows, that is really hard to say yes to, right? So you have to jump through hoops to say yes to this ridiculous thing. And then we all have to yes and that. Well, you know what that is? That's garbage. Now created garbage. So the thing at Second City for me was it's idea driven, right? And you can go through a funny character to get to the idea. You can go through an absurd situation. You can go through the newspaper. You can go through whatever. But the thing you're going to look for is what is behind this scene. As Jeff, my husband, Jeff Michalski would say, what is the abstract? What is it that you're exploring through improvisation, right?
Yeah.
And if all you're doing is saying yes to any crap that comes out of someone's mouth, you're not going to create anything except crap. Yeah. So the thing about yes and, Joe's not wrong. Viola's not wrong. Yeah, yes. But you're saying yes to the scene. You're saying yes to the idea. You're saying yes to the ongoing action. So, for example, at one point in a set, I was playing with Edie McClurg. She was playing a nun, and they had put her in a strip bar. Right? And then there was a scene, it was like a heraldy kind of thing. And later they shoved me out there to be the Mother Superior. They're going, Mother Superior, she was at the strip club. So now the Mother Superior has to tell her not to do what she's doing. Mm-hmm. Right? Now I could actually make a case as the Mother Superior of why she can in the yes and fashion, but I didn't. I did what my character would do, say no. And Edie started singing and dancing like this. She was singing this goofy song, like this British pub song, like this. So I kept telling her to stop it, but I started dancing with her. Right? I just couldn't not be infected by what the other actor was doing. That made a better scene. That made a richer scene. That made a scene that had an idea underneath it, right? Instead of just a mindless agreement. Does that make sense to you? Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So characters have different motivations. So my other unpopular idea, I don't know that it's not that unpopular, but to inject conflict in the scene for the sake of conflict, never, right? Mm-hmm. And you can go back to Viola for that one. There's a section in her book, and I think it's not in all the iterations of it, the editions, but there's a chapter called Conflict. And in it, she says, I think I'm going to take conflict out of the work because I think it makes for psychodrama, is what she says. And she writes to her son, Paul, and says, I'm thinking of doing this. And he says, I took it out a long time ago.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Because you don't need it, because characters will disagree. They will have differing opinions about what's going on around them, right? So your job is to let the idea of the scene move forward and service the idea of the scene. And sometimes in service of that idea, you're going to say, I think this, not that, right?
Yeah. So how do you differentiate between conflict versus when Mother Superior is, telling this nun stripper character not to, she Mother Superior eventually gets won over in that scene, but like for the start of it, what differentiates conflict for conflict's sake versus,
conflict for conflict's sake would have been me just insisting that she do what I tell her, right? Insisting, and this is how conflict, like when you're telling the other actor that what they're doing in the scene is wrong, you're doing the wrong thing, then, and you keep at it. Jeff has a whole thing about people, a lot of times when somebody is labeled or it's discovered, I would rather use that. I would rather use discovery rather than labeling.
Sure.
When we discover together that you are something that you don't want to be, and I will just pull one out of the air that's horrifying, a pedophile, say, first of all, who would do that to you? What kind of asshole? But again, it
happens. Yeah. Yep.
That you as an actor then go, oh no, you're wrong about me. His thing is, you're a fictional character right now. Why are you defending a fictional character? Make it a virtue. Make it a virtue. Whatever that thing is that you don't want to be. Sloppy, stupid, lazy, whatever it is that you don't want to be, make that a virtue.
Yeah. So that, and I think that's very interesting to me, the idea of eliminating conflict, because I suppose it can end up being a little bit of a paradox, depending on how you define conflict.
Yeah. Right? And let me say, I don't mean eliminate. I mean, do not pursue.
Got it. Yeah.
Disarm conflict. You know what I mean? It's like, it will arise. This was Dell's thing. Conflict will arise on its own. You don't have to go fishing for it ever. It's going to happen because people are different and they think differently. So to make that like, and where's the conflict in the scene?
Right. Yeah.
One of Jeff and I's signature scenes at Second City when we first opened the ETC was this toxic waste dump scene where we worked on it forever, where he was running a toxic waste dump and I was the EPA woman coming and trying to shut him down, and it didn't work. We worked on it. It never worked. And then I had a friend who worked for the EPA at the time, and we just happened to have dinner with her and stuff. And she was like, well, the thing is, nobody's going to clean this shit up ever. And you just better learn to live with it. Right. So the scene became Ed Flange's Campgrounds and Toxic Waste Dump. And I was his wife, and we were doing it together. And so it was a glorious, happy place to be, the toxic waste dump, because you're just going to poison yourself and become one with it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was way funnier than me going, no, you're wrong.
Yeah. And it's
the
like
other side of yes and, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like
is there something, right? Yeah. Is there something that you tend to replace the principle of yes and with, in recent days?
No, I'm not saying it's not about replacing the principle of it. It's there. Saying yes is a thing. I don't mean that. I mean, it's don't make it so precious.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Literal. Yeah.
Don't make it so literal and precious. Yes. You need to, and most actors coming into improvisation as a skill need to learn to say yes and. They're going to need that. At least in my experience, they do.
Yeah.
We don't teach
like you said,
that way anymore. The way Jeff and I teach now, we don't bother with that anymore because there's a whole way around that. But the outcome is the same.
Well, yeah. Talk to me about what is that whole way around yes and or adopting the literal
basically
yes.
What we do is we identify the abstract right away in the scene. We read the other player we don't ever start scenes going, well, here's your x-rays. They don't look good. We don't ever do that. We go, oh, you look a little worried. We start with no idea. We don't have an idea coming into the scene. We come in and we say how you look. You look worried. And then that's your acceptance right there, right? So you then would double down on being worried. Just be it, make it in your body, and then respond however it is you respond, but not in story. That's my other unpopular idea. Story has no place in improv. No place in improv. Do not.
Awesome.
Tell a fucking story. And here's why you can't. Because you're making everybody do your story that's in your brain. Good luck with that. Are you nuts? You know who does the story? The audience. If you're improvising well, they will tell you the story. Story arises. I'm not saying there's no story. Stories happen. But if you are pursuing story, if you're trying to make something happen, if you're trying to have an outcome and go rob the goddamn bank or whatever, no. So anyway, so once with no story, in other words, if I say you look worried, I wouldn't want you to say, yeah, I have that big exam coming up. I'd want you to just say something about I feel weighed down, right? Yeah. And now what I do is I break open weighed down. What does it mean to feel weighed down? Your mind is clouded with concern and fear. And now you're going to, and this is all in agreement. So the yes and is very present. You're going to go, yeah, right? In your brain. Yeah. And you're going to put that in a location. Where is a place? If I gave you a postcard and I said, where's a place that is full of worry and fear? Concern and fear. What would that place be? There's your postcard.
You're asking me?
Yeah. What would that place be? Just off the top of your head.
Yeah, hospital waiting room.
That's the location. Mm-hmm. And now you and I have a relationship that's full of worry and fear. So one actor takes the location, the other actor takes the relationship, and we're in. And now we play. We're in agreement on the place. We're in agreement on the idea. We're in agreement on who we are. We may or may not have an argument. We try not to. Arguments are kind of boring, but conflicts arise, and that's okay as long as you don't just stick there. That's how we do it. There's a lot more to it. Kinesthetic movement. those reads of just in any given moment when your face changes, if I read you right there, one of the things that's really hard to do in improvisation is a transition. You're playing these characters and they act like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you're not a goddamn cartoon. So if I look at you and I say, I've just said something to it and I might, your face changes, I can go, oh, I see I've, surprised you. I see I've made you angry. I see I see you're shutting down, like whatever. We've made a transition for your character and that just kicks the door open for you. Now, I see that you've changed. I see that I've affected you. If I say that to you, not only do you get that, in what we all call a gift, an offering, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I say that to you, I've told you what the audience is seeing. So now we're all on the same page, audience and players. And the fact that the audience is always in on all of that, that's how the story gets written. They write it in their brain. Because we can't not write story, human beings. We can't.
Yeah.
That's how we survive, by making a story about what's going on in our lives.
So, okay, I have a couple avenues I want to go down.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was saying to myself, I should give him a signal, the letter P, say the letter P, if I start pontificating, and just follow the P. So I think, okay.
No, I love it. I mean, really, this is all juicy stuff to dig into. And to me, it sounds, if I had to guess, are you and Jeff performing without a suggestion, or are you using a suggestion with this approach?
We use a suggestion.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, we do. We don't have to. And we all know this, right? You don't need a suggestion to play. Again, the suggestion is for the audience. I've always felt like the suggestion is like the part where the mad magician shows you that there's nothing in the hat.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just to prove that you're improvising.
Yeah. And as an unpopular idea, because some people are very insistent that you ought to, for by and large, be using a suggestion. But I know that there are plenty of shows that don't. What are your thoughts on, especially as the audience general knowledge of improv grows? It's certainly not, not every general audience knows what they're getting themselves into, but like, there's plenty of communities with multiple improv theaters who have been plenty exposed to improv. Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the value of using a suggestion when an audience knows what improv is?
I don't care one way or the other. It's up to you. Like, it's like COVID. What's your comfort level going to X?
Right. Yeah.
You want to have a suggestion? Yeah, go have a suggestion. That's fun for the audience. They feel involved, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have for me, again, you do not need a suggestion. You don't need it. It's not a need that you have. But if you like it, or you feel like that kick, I think I could make the case it kicks off the energy for the show, right away. You've engaged them, blah, blah, blah. But you can do all that without a suggestion as well. So it's up to you. Have fun.
So with starting with the abstract, to me, if I were going to play that way, I've played without a suggestion, and I really enjoy it. There was a time when I was playing in a particular theater that didn't use a suggestion, and I felt like some of the most like authentically shows that I felt authentically like in the moment and pure discovery were without a suggestion. And they tended to start how you're describing as more like abstract or like little tiny moments and building out. I find I've tried to do that same sort of approach with a suggestion, and I get really in my head about not using the suggestion explicitly or upfront or whatever it is. How do you do that abstract approach when you get, what kind of suggestion do you get, or like how do you avoid?
We just get whatever, but then honestly, if you think of the suggestion like a virus that has infected us, then all we have to do is remind ourselves of what we're talking about or what context that might be in. And so like maybe you can use the suggestion as the abstract. That's a possibility, right? Mm-hmm. So you could go right into a where based on that abstract. there as in a long form, as you move through it, you already know the abstract. So, but more come out, right? I used to play this game called, I made up this little game to help people understand idea in scene. And it's called, what do we call it? We call it, I can't think what we call it. It'll come to me. Anyway, so we take there's 5 actors, 3 on one side and 2 on the other. And then the first 2 get up and they do a scene. And then and after that, everybody, the next 2 get up, one from this side, one from that side, up we go. And they're going to do a scene that's about the scene that just happened. So back then, and we just keep doing that. Mm-hmm. So back when we first did that, I had them, I mean, it was really like what I think of almost as old school, although it's the way everybody plays. So, and I'm not judgy about that. I play that way too, where you do come on with a, mom, you blah, blah, whatever. I don't love to do that.
Yeah.
The thing about doing that, it's like everybody knows how to do that. That's a good improviser, and yay, let's do that. And if that's how everybody's playing, I'm fine with that. I have no issue at all. The thing that's really freeing about not doing that is you can always cut, because you don't need an idea to have your ass out there when your ass needs to be out there for the whole, right? Yeah. The scene's gone on too long. It's dying a horrible death. And we're all on the wall because, I don't know, I don't have an idea.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's been my experience. Yeah. That's been my experience too, is just at a certain point, it's like training wheels, right? The heavy-handed, establishing who, what, where, or relationship and stuff can kind of ease up, and you can get more out of less.
Yes.
As you get deeper into it.
And then there's a whole other set of tools like moving kinesthetically and mirroring or not mirroring, or, like I said, doubling down on a character trait, or there's so many other things that gesture. There's so many other things at play at that point Dell's thing was really to keep everybody in discovery as long as possible, so that audience and players all land at the same time. And the whole thrill of improv is exactly that, is that you don't know until you do know. And when we all know at the same time, when people go, it's magic. That's why, because audience and players all land on the same moment at the same time. That's why you get that huge laugh when all the things come together, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody saw it coming, and we all understand that it came.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so thrilling, right? It's so much fun. There's really nothing more fun than that. I can't think of anything.
Yeah. And so I guess that kind of segues to the other avenue I was hoping to go down, because that getting that result and throwing away the idea of literally yes-anding or pursuing story, trusting the things that are going to get you to this, group sticking the landing, trusting those things to be a side effect of being in the moment and just like doing what the character would do and whatnot. Like that tends to be, just a scary thing for people, is like, okay, I got to aim at anything but what I want to have happen.
Yes.
In order
once
to
once you go into what I want to have happen, you're dead. You're dead in the water. I mean, I'm same thing. I'm like, oh, it's this. And
yeah. Well, one kind of, I guess maybe an unpopular idea from my end that I'll throw out there just to get your thoughts on is that,
oh boy.
I'm a heady person, if you can't tell. But I like which is not really how I play, but I totally understand it when I coach and when I teach. And of course I encourage people who have like writer's head or are just trying to be too cerebral about stuff to let go of it as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I had at a certain point started experimenting with the note or the idea that like, you can do things on purpose, but it needs to not look that way. And that's really like I guess like asking or masking as an actor a choice with intention behind it, is that like do things on purpose but make them look like they're incidental. And I guess I'm wondering what your thoughts are. Is that a fool's errand, or is it possible to for someone who plays more cerebral to still just take the way that they naturally think and use it in a way that feels not heavy-handed or not, taking the steering wheel too hard?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm understanding you about the making a specific. What word did you need to say? Specific, like a plan.
Doing something on purpose. Yeah.
Like, so I'm not sure quite what you mean by that. Like,
so if you're like, I as just as somebody who's very heady, especially off stage, and it does. I get into those modes where I'm like, oh man, I do see something that I think would be really awesome to have happen, and I've gone for it with varying degrees of success depending on who I'm playing with or what the show needs or whatever. And for the most part, what I think is more successful is to really try to get into a place of being in the moment. And I recognize the reality of that being a different mode where I'm not thinking ahead and I am losing myself in the give and take with partner and getting real discoveries moment by moment and not trying to, strategize about what could happen.
Right. So it sounds like what you're talking about is coming in to an ongoing scene, perhaps, or with an idea. Is that what you're?
Yeah. Or like, I wish I could come up with a real hard, clear example, but like,
I feel like I know what you're talking about because I think
like
it's. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I'm thinking more like a callback or a if I'm like, oh, I think that this character from a previous scene could come back, or it'd be really great if we ended up where we started in the kitchen scene and we're actually looking through the window like we were in the first scene.
Yeah, no,
whatever.
But see, I don't really think of that as like the problem comes in when you try to shoehorn it in there. And so the problem comes in is like, okay, you're a smart player, but maybe that guy's not so bright.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've played with people who do that and literally just dumb down everything that just happened. And you're just like, oh man, we had this whole thing flying and you just made it so dumb. You know what I mean?
It feels contrived. Yeah.
Like, oh, here comes the cop, like, oh, fuck,
Yeah.
But in the right hands, that callback, that's just pattern play. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I see the pattern. I recognize the pattern from here and it fits over here. Off we go. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Is the difference acting? To me, that came to be my solution is that like it seems like a difference in like how well acted are you doing these things that can otherwise appear contrived for usually cerebral players. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's just when I think of cerebral players, what I think part of it for me is my brain gets stuck on when I think of a cerebral player. I think of somebody who talks and doesn't really move on stage.
Sure.
Blah, blah, blah. And I can be that way. But although I'm more of a clown than not, like physically.
Gotcha.
But I can get blabby, obviously. And
yeah,
so,
so
to that end, one of the things that we do is when a character enters a scene especially in a long form, what we're trying to do is not normally, if you're coming on in a scene in a long form, it's because you have an idea, right? Mm-hmm. And hopefully when I say idea, it's like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're coming on with help because they somehow didn't have a where, you know what I mean? Or there's something that they forgot that they should remember right now, and you're going to bring that information to them. That's the nature of help, right? Mm-hmm. Do they need help is question A, and what kind of help do they need is question B. So when you enter with that help, don't come on with the help. Come on, let them turn and identify you. And that way it's not it's not a jumpy edit of you going, here I'm Uncle Bob and blah, blah, like whatever explanation you have to, exposition you have to choke out to get your idea out there. Yeah. You let them tell you who you are. And then and maybe even why you're there. And then you still can do your help. You can.
Yeah.
And so it's not as rough. And then the other thing I would say first, if you're just worried about what my definition of cerebral people that aren't moving is that you get that actor to physicalize his idea. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? What is the idea here? Whatever it is, take a word, any word, and physicalize that word and stay in it. Change your body and move out of that change. And it'll become a lot. It'll become a character. It'll become an embodied idea, and that'll get you out of standing there yammering. Because what we don't need is you building a cathedral. That's one of Jeff's things. Here I am on stage and I walk in and I start doing all kinds of shit.
Yeah, or to have your walk on.
Up to, right, is the other guy. It's just, let's do it together. We'll build everything together.
Yeah, I love the idea or the point of starting with physicality, because you don't want the walk on or whatever help you're trying to give to just feel like you hit the PA button and to be like, don't forget, you guys set your work together in '91 at the Toothpick Factory. And you also mentioned that you are more clown as a performer. Can you elaborate on that? What you mean by being?
Oh, by that I mean I'm just a very physical actor and comedian. So when I was young, I did pratfalls, you name it, and I kind of like flung myself all over the stage, and I still kind of do, but I'm old now, so if I fling myself onto the floor, say, which I can do, sort of, I can't get up very nicely.
Sure. Yeah, you gotta know your timing.
It's not gonna look
timing.
Good. It's not gonna look good. It might be out of character, the getting up.
Yeah. So do you? This is bringing to mind. I'm pretty sure I picked it up from maybe a Craig Kukowski interview where he was talking about leading with behavior first. And I am with you on being a more physical player, and he was the first person that kind of phrased that as behavior first, which is really useful to me because, like what you're saying, with starting with the abstract, or you're worried, and then kind of narrowing down to more specific, to me is a similar effect to starting with something physical, which is so much more like powerful and present. And then, what Craig was saying was like lead with behavior and then figure out why later, as opposed to the other way around. Like, this is what we're doing, and then assign a behavior to it, go the other way around. How do you have useful ways of teaching physicality, especially to early performers who are maybe sharper wit and verbal gymnastics? How do you get people to get into their body?
Oh, well, first of all, we start with a kinesthetic warm up, and that is you're moving with the other actor. It's not a mirror. You use your peripheral vision to move with that other actor. It's like Jeff describes it as like a basketball player running backwards down the court, right? So he can see the game, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. So, but you move with the other people, and you don't mirror. You move. What I've come to in doing it is like, I'm moving because you're moving. Your movement is causing me to move. So that, because it can be small and it can be giant, and if you're warming up together, it will get giant, and you will be changing speeds and levels and all kinds of things while you're doing. And it's just straight movement. That helps, a bit, moving people around. But then when we're going into the abstract, and you literally physicalize the abstract as your first choice, that's really helpful. Mm-hmm. If you stay moving kinesthetically with the other actor in a scene, just the way you were in the warm-up, you're going to be moving, even if it's small. And what Craig was saying about you don't know why, you'll find out the why.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. I don't know why I'm moving like this, but we'll find out, right?
Yeah.
In a minute. So and that is, I think, people's biggest fear, just from watching people learning, that idea that I'm doing something that I don't know why, that I'm afraid I'm not going to find the answer. And what are all those games about? All of those games are about that. Trust that you will find out. Why do you play freeze tag or switch? Why do you play new choice? Why do you play? It's to show you that any choice works as long as you commit, right?
Yeah.
Commit physically, commit mentally, find the idea, move, whatever all those things you want to do are. It's all just to prove to you that it doesn't matter what emotion you have in the scene, have one. But at the same time, for me, it's like, you could arbitrarily pick an emotion. Obviously, that's fine. But it's a reactive mentality that rather than just take in what you're saying to me, I react to it. Reaction is an emotion. How I react is an emotion. And there isn't a wrong one. It's just everything in improvisation is back justification, right? Everything that happens, you have to go backwards to find out why. Everything. So, so for me, that's what follow the fear really means, that, just trust that we're doing this together. The horrible part is when your teammates let you down and you step out and they're like, I don't have an idea, so I'm not coming. It's like, get the fuck out.
Yeah. Because that's a reality too. And it is only just like, you should not assume too much, bring in the cathedral, because you should be relying on your scene partner. You can, it's the same thing that, like, the truth is that sometimes you will be met with without support, which is tough.
Right. Yeah. So another thing that we do to help thread the needle is sometimes we'll do a scene, kind of like scene grinders. That's that game I was talking to you about. Scene grinders is what we called it. It was really good for generating sketch too, by the way. Cool. And so what we started doing in long form sometimes is coming off of the previous scene and taking the idea from that scene and just saying to the other actor, just start the scene cold and go, so what you're saying is that someday we will have to become one with the toxicity that we live in. We just say that, like, as though we were just having this conversation. And now we can just build out, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to agree. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. But it's not that they did a scene about that, like that was their scene. I'm taking what I got out of what they said and moving it into saying, I think what that was about there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we just do that. And so then you just pull that building block out and drop so what you're saying is, so what they were saying is, so what you're saying is, you just say, someday we're just going to have to live with toxicity.
Yeah,
right?
That's great. I love that. Even it sounds like you do that as a, mostly as a exercise rehearsal.
No, that's how we play.
Live.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I love that. Yeah. I think that's a great.
It's been super fun. And what we've been doing, because I work with writer performers as well.
Okay.
And so, like, people doing one-person shows and whatnot. And what we've done is, I got to a point where it's like, oh, well, you have like 20 minutes worth of show, and we'd like to know if we should keep working on it because maybe it's bad. I don't think it is, but we can't ask an audience to come for 20 minutes. So we did all these hybrid shows where, and they were so crazy delightful, where in one, I would have a team of improvisers and they do like a spoken word kind of 10-minute monologue or whatever. And then I would have the improvisers come out and do like 3 scenes. and then they would do another section of their show and we'd have them come out and do, but these are people who are trained to find idea.
Mhm.
So in some of the shows, I would not let them listen to what the person was going to say on stage until the audience, like we all heard it at the same time for the first time. I mean, I know what it was, but nobody else did. But
Sure.
some of them, like this one woman was an artist and her stuff is so densely full of idea that I was like, you're going to have to listen to this one ahead of time because it's going to take one or two passes for you to hear everything she's really saying here. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But the other one was so beautifully, simplistically rich. And it was so rich. It's like, let's just let that fall on us all at the same time. And that one, both of them really, the audience is just like, what was that? That was so fun, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, I've never seen that. That was a wild ride. And then I started putting the improvisers into the stories a little bit as like background, or like I have a woman who's a dialect coach, right? And she plays the various sounds that we make as people. Like the sound is just this woman sitting in the back of the bar going, well, you found me. You know,
Yeah.
my claim to fame is when Bert Lahr famously used me as the cowardly lion. Right?
Yeah.
Ridiculous thing, but it's about how we live and how we sound to each other. And so the last thing she does, she hates the vocal fry, right? Everybody's doing this vocal fry. Now, I can't stand it either, but I didn't even notice it until her. Right now, I'm crazed hearing it. And she's glottal fry, which is what that's called. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Yep. Like scratchy voice, basically.
Yeah,
right?
like, and then I'm gonna go to the star, that shit.
Yeah.
And so she does glottal fry at a cocktail party, and she embodies the fry. Everyone's using me now, even men, and so I had the actors play the people at the cocktail party, and we just move them around as she's moving around through the party. It was just lovely looking. And I have to say, I was really concerned that it would look clunky to have the actors like come in and out of a spoken word piece like that. It doesn't. It just sort of floats. And it's really, I love a pretty show, and it's just lovely. It's just fun and lovely. So we've had all kinds of ways. So I like to use actors that are trained in this particular method to do those shows, because I trust them to not come in with somebody's x-rays. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. That sounds great. It sounds like a show that I would, love to see.
They're super fun. They are so fun.
Do we have more on your list of unpopular ideas to touch on?
My one last unpopular idea is Improv Schools. I'm sorry.
Yeah, great. I can't wait to hear. What is it?
Well, and I will just tell you my own experience about that, and then you can take it from there. And because it's not about anyway. I was there when they started the Second City Training Center. Right. I was there, and both times, both out here and both here and in Chicago. And like I said, there was only Joe. And by the time I came along, and I was late to the party, very, very late to the party.
Okay.
And I had been a comedian all my life, but not until my late 20s did I start improvisation. I was in a sketch group and we were like, we write.
Sure.
I can't even sketch anymore. I just love to improvise. So we didn't do that. And so Del was around during that. He was doing classes by then too. And various people that were just like I said, teaching an improv class or whatever. And
sure.
And so there wasn't a school of improv. And then Second City, which I thought was a good idea to open a, improv school. Mm-hmm. And the people that started that, it was a group. Somehow history has written it that it's Martin Dumont. Martin Dumont was not even there at this point. I never had heard of him ever. And so it was like Jeff and Michael Gelman and Jeff's brother John Michalski, and Donnie DiPolo was still there, I believe. And anyway, there was a couple more. Joe Forsberg was, I think, there.
Sure.
And they had auditions to get into this thing. And then there were 5 levels. And I think the whole thing lasted 8 weeks, the whole 5 levels. You know what I mean? Like you did the thing, you paid your money, you did a show at the end of it. And I remember going to the first graduate show at Second City. They had pizza. And that was that. And then when they saw what a cash cow it was, they added a level, just one, a level, right? And here we are, right?
Yes.
So I watched them with the dollar signs, you know, just adding level after level after level and codifying what people do. And I never had a problem with the idea of being a teacher at Second City. I did teach for them off and on, but I didn't like it because I don't like having a syllabus, because if today you're just not listening very well, and it always seems to be like the group is sort of like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to just stop and just concentrate on listening. It's high-end listening. It's listening with your whole body, right? And if you're just off there today, I'm going to stop and we're just going to do emerging scenes or a game that's all listening, or you know what I mean? We're just going to listen. Mm-hmm. And we're going to dig through everything everybody said until we're listening right. And that you don't miss beats. It's like the I Ching, like water through a canyon. Water going through the canyon fills every crevice. Mm-hmm. Do not let a crevice go unfilled before you move on. That I want to stop and do that if I have to. And I just felt so hamstrung, and some of it was like, I don't even want to teach this one, you know, like,
sure. Yeah.
So I just don't care for any of that. And then watching, for me, I don't want to get into too far into the weeds here, but watching some of the codified nonsense that's come out as a result of that. First breaking pattern thing is, what's that?
What is it?
There's a whole like school of thought about the scene is about the first break in pattern.
Oh, sure. Yeah. First unusual thing, or like,
So what do you get? A bunch of scenes about unusual things and absurdist crap.
Yeah, totally.
Again, in the right hands, that's brilliant. But most people, I would say most improvisers, not so much. And this idea that, you know, the motto is don't think. How do you not think?
While
trying to recognize the most unusual thing or the first unusual thing. What if nothing unusual happens?
Yeah.
What if I just drink coffee and talk to you?
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, improv, like improv's so tough to me in terms of what we're talking about here, which is like how to teach it and how to nurture the most important underlying principles of the art, but at the same time give practical instruction of any kind, because it's not like I would always equate it. You know, if I was teaching a intro level, what I started doing was equating it to music. If you pick up an instrument, you learn your scales. You have to train your fingers how to do things that they don't know how to do when you first pick up a guitar or a violin or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, people are not going to come see you just run scales, and you're not going to have the most fun just running scales. We want to see you rock out and
you're going to have to keep practicing, or you're not going to still be good.
Yeah.
It's a practice.
There is a duality. Yeah, absolutely. But like, as opposed to, or not as opposed to, it's harder to see the difference between, well, there's the instrument and how I use it in music. It's harder to see that when you're tied into what your instrument is, which is you as a person, as an actor. So it's sometimes hard to separate and practice those things separately, like the objective skill sets that might be useful to you. Kinesthetics and physicality and posture and movement and all this stuff, dialects and some of the form elements of or like editing tools in long form versus like the pure just spirit of play, right? Just jamming and
Right.
fostering that. I think that to me, in my experience, echoing what you're saying, is where the hang up is that I have not come across many programs that separate them and merge them, in the best way. It's a tough thing to do. Like,
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
And I think it's the reason I enjoy what Jeff does so much, because he doesn't separate them. He also doesn't stratify the class in levels at all, which sometimes becomes frustrating. I understand that. But more often it's like, you've got to play with everybody. So, and Paul Sills's motto was whoever comes plays. So we just get up with everybody and play. And when we do shows, maybe we'll have a team more, but not even that much. And because people actually can handle, if you keep at it and you practice, you can handle it. But the thing about schools for me too, though, is, or at least teachers, let's put it that way, because that's the other thing about schools is there's great teachers at them, but you got the luck of the draw, and not all of them are great. You know what I mean? So, and you have no choice who you get. So I don't really like that part of it. But what I do like is that the word you use for that thing, like you said, Craig using the word behavior, right? That's a great word for it. I don't think I would use that word, but the thing is, that word worked for you. So yeah, you're probably where you need to be. You know what I mean? So I've always encouraged people to go everywhere and work with as many people as they can on stage, as teachers, whatever, because the words I use for the very same thing might be the one that gets in your head better.
Sure.
That's all. Yeah. And so all of a sudden you go, oh, right, now I get it, right? Because that guy used that word instead of the word I was using. Great. Who cares, right? As long as you got it, that's what we're here for. So to that end, I love as much of all of it as you can get in there, because it is a practice.
Yeah. What I said, we're close to the end of our time here, but I do want to just take one step further on this conversation of classes. To me, one of the difficulties or challenges putting myself in the shoes of a theater is the money issue, right? Is that classes are a lifeblood for a theater to sustain itself. Do you have thoughts on like should we ideally be charging more for shows? Or this is, I also always with the disclaimer that this is a very difficult conversation to have amidst the pandemic, where theaters are having a hard time keeping afloat.
Game. Like, good luck doing anything.
But yeah, how do you avoid the trap of like, well, it's lucrative, and how do you separate that from the artistic remodel in the education?
Well, I guess I just feel like in the models that I have seen, the big ones, my thing would be like, don't be so greedy. Like, because I'm not sure where that money's going. It's not going to that teacher, I'll tell you that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all that money that came in for the class, and now you have 8 of those classes. Don't tell me your light bill's not paid. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you have a bar on top of it, please, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you don't need to be so greedy.
Yeah.
And about how much money you make. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably the last person to have a intelligent conversation about actual business.
Well, that would surprise me, because you've had a hand in starting up quite a few.
I have, but
theaters.
we didn't. There was only one of them that we survived by the classes, and we had enough people that it was fine. We paid the rent, we paid the teachers, and we didn't have a bar, and it was fine. We had a huge student body. We had lots of shows. We put up lots of shows. Sometimes we rented the space out, to people, but mostly it was just us producing things.
Mm-hmm.
The other place had a bar, and so we had a lot of students. We could kind of do whatever we want. And now the place we run doesn't have a bar. We're hoping to have one coming out of the pandemic, but we don't.
This
and
is fanaticSalon.
and we don't have classes. Yeah, the fanaticSalon.
Oh, really?
We don't have classes. Well, we do. Jeff teaches a class, but there's not like a
program
level program, la-di-da.
Sure.
There's just not. And I teach writer performers. So we have
Mm-hmm.
that. We produce a lot of shows, and we rent the space out. And if you want to do a show, then you either pay us, or we'll work a deal where we split the stuff with you. And hopefully we don't make any money. Me and Tommy that run it, we make nothing. And well, a little, but really nothing. And
Sure. Yeah.
but the place keeps going, and we'd like to make a profit. We would like to make it.
Of course, yeah.
We're interested in keeping the place going.
Yeah.
So
that's why it's such a tough conundrum, right? It's almost like just drawing the analogy to the idea of what you want out of scene work is the more you focus on story, the more you're going to choke the underlying thing that makes a scene magic. It's sort of the same thing with the theater, right? Is that it's a very difficult balance to focus on the business end of it without crossing the line to where oh well, now it is a cookie cutter machine. And sacrificing something about the artwork. But then there aren't a ton of examples of theaters that are making a big profit margin, but still have all the magic and integrity of the.
I would say the Annoyance does a great job at that in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
They've done it, and look, they're back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're back. Second City had to sell itself to a corporation, so I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah,
Iowa's gone, right? I think.
I think they sold to a pair, some business partners. I can't remember their story, but yeah.
Oh, maybe they're back then, or they
have
whatever. But yeah, it's we kind of felt just watching it from afar, that it was oh, this is getting into too big to fail land. If something happens, it's gonna blow up because of the stratification and the way and then it got too big.
Yeah.
So that if anything goes wrong, you're kind of fucked. And something went wrong.
Yeah.
So, but a few things went wrong. I mean, Second City, there was also that whole diversity situation, and
Oh yeah. There's more than
I
just
think that went across the boards too.
Yeah.
And for our theater, it's well, if you want to come to our theater, you're in. So it's not something we concern ourselves too much about.
Yeah.
It's pretty diverse.
Well, that's excellent. Yeah. And so speaking of your theater, before we sign off here, it is fanaticSalon in Culver City. That's right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
And if you want to come in, Jeff teaches from 11 to 2 every Saturday. And of course, it's the holidays, so we'll have weeks off. But otherwise, we're there, and you can drop the hell in.
Yeah. What does the program of shows look like, planned for January or when you come back?
Well, it's been a little dodgy.
Sure.
We have this one music show that's super fun that's been away during the pandemic because there's 15 musicians on stage. And it's such a fun show called Top Tune, where they take 6 singer-songwriters. They make them into pairs arbitrarily. So we come in, we don't know each other, but now we're a pair. We're team one. We get up, I sing one of my original songs, you sing one of yours. And with a band, I bring in a chart, we do our song each, and then they give us a song title, and we have 17 minutes to go write that song and come back and sing it together. And all 3 teams do that. It's so much fun, and they have celebrity judges and all kinds of other mayhem in there. It's a great show. And it's LA, really good musicians. And so they were gone, and they're coming back in January. And now I'm a little worried, that they might have to go, oh, maybe we shouldn't again,
Yeah.
But now tonight we have a show that'll we only seat 53 people, but it's a small space, and we're doing a
Mhm.
show tonight that may well sell out, but everybody's, vax and mask, and then the party part is outdoors, so
Good. Yeah.
I think we'll be
Well,
okay.
and also that we should reiterate that we're recording this on the 19th of December, pre-recorded, so people will have to catch you in the new year. Is tonight your last night of the year, or you got
Yes.
more?
Well, although
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to do we have 2 open mics, one on Thursday and one on Friday, and I doubt they'll do Christmas Eve, but they
Right,
might
okay.
do that Thursday open mic. I don't really
Sure.
know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll drop a link to. You have the website for the show?
fanaticSalon.com. You can see our calendar, and we're starting to put up some video of various things that we're doing and have done, and we're slow on that one.
Sure.
It's me.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
The web guy is wonderful. Also,
It's tough.
fine improviser, Russ Guberman. Oh my God, is he funny? So,
Okay. Shout out to Russ.
Yeah, shout out to Russ is right, and he's about to have a new baby. So, double shout out to Russ.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, Jane Morris, thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad we were able to have this offline recording with you in lieu of the time zone mix up. Totally our fault. Thanks so much for joining for this conversation.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Right back at you. And for our viewers, you are watching this either on Facebook, on the Improv Network Facebook page and group, or on YouTube on the Improv FAQ channel. You can also find us anywhere that podcasts are found as an audio-only podcast. Thanks again. We'll catch you.